The Nintendo Switch is one of my favorite consoles of all time. I've met so many friends, played so many games, and traveled halfway across the globe with it. It's awesome. So when I heard about the Switch 2, I was genuinely excited. All the same memories over and over again. But when the price got revealed, things got a little darker. But this isn't the video you think it is. Walk with me. The Nintendo Switch released in March 2017 for $300 MSRP. In today's money, due to inflation, that's around $396. And if you remember during that time, you'll remember it launched with, games, to say the least. Y'all remember playing ARMS and, 1-2 Switch? I mean, we had Breath of the Wild and Just Dance, but for a couple months, you were kinda just cooked, I'm not gonna lie with you. But it was fun, it was new, and we were all having a good time. So now the Nintendo Switch 2 launches with the same roster of games the Switch 1 provided, and a new Mario Kart game is a leading launch title, and people are not happy. Let's get into that. Alright, so the new Nintendo Switch 2 is $450 MSRP. I was expecting it to be $350 or even $400, but with all the new hardware improvements, as well as inflation mentioned earlier, it kinda makes sense. I mean, if you told me 120 FPS and Nintendo were in the same sentence 2 years ago, I'd say you were insane. But no, we got 1080p, 120Hz, and 4K 60, which is awesome. So yes, the console is expensive, but it's better. Now let's talk about the license agreement, the thing that people normally don't read. People are upset because Nintendo says they can take away your stuff that you bought at any time if you don't follow their rules. Which is fair, you know, that kinda sounds harsh. But let's talk about those rules. They don't want you to mod your console or take it apart. People love modding their games, so yeah, that kinda sucks. Even on PC, I don't mod my games a lot, but I've seen a lot of mods for Smash, Mario Kart, etc. And I'm like, you know what? It would kinda suck for this to not exist. But Nintendo does it to protect their consoles and IP. So why do they care so much anyway? Let's take it back to 2010 with the Nintendo DS. Most notably, the last time Nintendo didn't really do much about piracy and protecting their IP. Pokemon Platinum in 2010, not even counting up to today, was pirated 2 million times. This led to Nintendo, Game Freak, and everyone else involved losing $103 million on just that game alone. And that's not even the end of it. Dragon Quest IV, Mario Party DS, New Super Mario Bros., Mario Kart DS, Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and more add up to 19.3 million downloads and $941 million lost. Now I want to preface, I'm not getting mad at people for piracy. When I got a DS for Christmas in 2013, it came with a top 40 DS games cartridge, and I added to the numbers on screen here. I only played one of my favorite games of all time, Fire Emblem Awakening, in 2020 due to piracy. I bought the physical copy of the game a few years ago, and a couple other things, but ultimately I still pirated the game. As we know with all types of media, piracy is gonna happen anyway. But when you're a company with the goal of making money to create trust in your shareholders, you probably see all that loss and try to do something about it. Especially considering Nintendo is not in a Google level of wealth as a company before the Nintendo Switch 2 in 2017. There were multiple times where if their handhelds flopped at the same time as their home consoles, we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. So let's go back to mods. They're really cool, but without a homebrew launcher, you can't really use them. But you see, the homebrew launcher being in the equation also leads to the things we just discussed. Piracy. So yes, Nintendo can brick your console, but not only have they been able to do this before, many other companies follow the exact same policies.
You know you don't actually own your Switch 2 when you buy it?
Yep, and the same is true for your iPhone, your Xbox, your PlayStation, your MacBook, your iPad, and even your car sometimes.
Well, but the new terms of service says they can brick your console whenever they want.
The old terms of service said that too. They're not going to brick your console unless you do something like mod the system, which implies you literally might be stealing from them. If they did it for some other reason, like trying to get you to upgrade to the next console, not only would it tank sales because people wouldn't trust them anymore, but then the governments would likely come after them because when Apple did something similar by slowing down phones to get you to upgrade to the next one, they were fined and they were told they can't do that anymore.
When you open the door for mods, it opens the door for piracy as well. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Also, let's stop making such a big deal about game keys. Yes, the whole game doesn't come on the cart. This is a 4K 60 console. Games are getting bigger, it's harder to simply plug in the card and play. On other consoles like the PS5, you have to wait to play a new disc anyway. Most games nowadays have day one patches you need to install prior to playing anyway. We aren't really in the DS days anymore where you can just plug in your game and play. And no, I don't believe that Nintendo can brick your game carts either. That's one of the many spreads of misinformation going around right now. If you want to lend somebody a game, simply give them the cartridge or log in on their Switch. Now let's get into the big one. Every time you hear anything related to this console, all I hear about is $80 games. People are mad because Nintendo is setting a standard for charging $80 for video games with the new Mario Kart World game. The Mario Kart World game is also available for $50 in the bundle with the console. Do I think that charging $80 for this game is bad? Yes. I understand games are getting bigger, and this game visually looks fantastic, but I think the new standard set a couple years ago of $70 would have been fine. Like I said earlier, Nintendo offers the game for $50 in the bundle, which is how I've seen most play the game. I haven't seen or heard many people buy this game at the retail price of $80, so I think the whole voting with your wallet thing is going pretty well right now. I've heard many opinions, like $80 for a kart racer, Nintendo is greedy, and most importantly, buying the game helps them set the standard for the rest of the industry. Let's break it down. Okay, $80 for a kart racer isn't really a sound argument to me because I believe judging a game's price simply based on what type of game it is isn't really fair in most cases. Games are supposed to be fun, and you're supposed to have fun playing them. Saying to somebody else that a game isn't fun just because of the genre isn't really fair, because at that point I could just start saying, you paid $70 for a gun game, or you paid $110 for an anime fighter you played for less than 20 hours. And the argument becomes less critical. Yes, $80 is a large asking price for a game, but you shouldn't get on people's cases for simply buying and enjoying the game that they're playing. Is Nintendo greedy for charging $80 for this game? I do believe so, even a little bit, but I feel out of line is more of the term I would use here instead. I feel Nintendo will see the vast amount of people buying the game at $30 off, and see that they potentially airballed this one. This most likely won't change the market in my opinion, because the only game that I can think of that they could charge, in the worst hypothetical, $100 for is GTA 6, the most anticipated game of the past 5 years. And considering we haven't seen live gameplay of it in 10 years in the making, only time will tell. Oh, and then for the last one, is a Steam Deck better? The crazy part I see about the Steam Deck is that everybody talks about it like it has such a leg up over the competition, but legitimately name 5 people you know in real life that own this console. Because I haven't seen this console outside of Micro Center. It's not as slim, not as multiplayer friendly, now it has worse stats than the Switch 2. And to top it off, you guys understand that for it to function like a Switch you need to buy a Steam Dock, right? Which adds an extra $80 to the asking price. And let's just be honest, if you can pirate games from other consoles, that's not really a selling point. That's just something you can do that they won't stop you for. It is nice that it comes with a power supply though, I will say that. So that's most of the Switch 2 controversies. And this whole situation has been tiring for me. I haven't even bought the Switch 2 yet, I'm still waiting for my birthday in early July. But when it comes to Nintendo, people just love to complain, dogpile, and punch literal air on issues they haven't properly informed themselves about, which leads to people reacting to buzzwords instead of actually thinking about the full issue. Which is exactly why I made this video. I'm not a Nintendo fanboy or a glazer, I just think that the Switch 2 deserves a little bit of a break nowadays, especially with their competition. PlayStation Plus costs $80 a year? Overall, if you're mad about the Switch 2 or anything else that's happening surrounding it, I get it. But also, don't hop on the internet and bully people who did get it or are excited about it just because you wouldn't do it yourself. Remember, it's not your money, and you shouldn't try to take people's enjoyment away just because you didn't like something. This has been 7 Aces, signing off. Thank you for watching to the end. If you enjoyed, please share the video and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.